"You are a disaster of a woman. You look like a decoration instead of a millionaire's wife," he yelled. But he was surprised when the Summit restaurant was a reflection of the luxury and exclusivity that defined the city's elite. Crystal chandeliers hung elegantly, casting a glow over tables covered with impeccable linen tablecloths. The music of a piano filled the atmosphere with a melody that blended with the whispered conversations of the diners. In the center of the room, at the most prominent table, Marcus Sterling settled in with the arrogance of one accustomed to being the center of attention. His wife, Ashley, remained silently at his side, her eyes downcast and the serene expression she had perfected over the years firmly in place. Marcus's family, including his mother Eleanor and his younger brother Jeremy, took their seats with the same haughtiness that characterized the Sterlings. "Let's toast to our success," Marcus said, raising his wine glass with a calculated smile. The glasses clinked softly, but Ashley barely lifted hers. She felt the weight of their gazes on her, the same looks that had judged her since the first day she entered that family. "Aren't you going to toast, Ashley?" Eleanor asked with a smile laced with venom. Ashley raised her glass with trembling hands. "Of course," she whispered, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. Marcus looked sideways at her with an expression that distilled impatience. "And stop acting like a child, Ashley, you're embarrassing me." The words cut the air like a knife, and Ashley felt a blush creep up her neck. Everyone present pretended not to have heard, but the silence that followed was the worst kind of judgment. Jeremy cleared his throat, attempting to change the subject. "Mother, the new investment in the company seems to be bearing fruit. I received the reports this morning." Eleanor nodded, deliberately ignoring Ashley. "I knew it would be a success. I've always had a good eye for business." Ashley lowered her gaze to her plate, stirring her food without taking a bite. Marcus's hand slid under the table and squeezed her leg hard, like a silent warning. "Eat something," he hissed between his teeth with a forced smile on his lips. Ashley nodded, forcing herself to bring a piece of food to her mouth. Everything seemed to follow the usual routine until the conversation turned to the city's most recent charity gala. Eleanor, in her condescending tone, began to recount how Ashley had been a disaster at the last public appearance. "You can't go through life with that submissive attitude, Ashley. You look like a decoration instead of the wife of an influential man." Ashley felt shame choke her, but before she could respond, Marcus interrupted. "The worst part is she's right, Mother. Ashley has no presence. No matter how much I strive to give her everything, she's simply not up to par." The comment caused discreet laughter to fill the table, but Ashley felt the floor opening beneath her. She forced herself to breathe deeply, trying to contain the tears that threatened to betray her. "Excuse me, I need to go to the restroom," she said softly, getting up quickly. Marcus grabbed her arm before she could take a step. "Sit down. I haven't finished speaking." The authoritarian tone in his voice caused Ashley to freeze. "Marcus, please." He let out a bitter laugh, and the icy look he gave her made fear grip her. "Please," he repeated mockingly. And then, without warning, the slap resonated throughout the restaurant. The blow made Ashley stagger backward, covering her cheek with wide eyes of surprise. The diners fell into a sepulchral silence. Some looked with discretion, others with obvious discomfort. Waiters stopped dead in their tracks while the pianist lost the rhythm for an instant. Outside, Patrick was crossing the street with his hands in the pockets of his worn jacket. His distracted gaze paused for an instant on the scene through the restaurant's large window. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. Ashley, with a trembling hand to her face, and Marcus, with an expression of cruel satisfaction. Patrick felt rage rise in his chest. His experience as an off-duty police officer told him he should stay out of it, but his instinct screamed at him to intervene. He entered the restaurant with a firm stride, feeling the gazes fixated on him. His worn clothes contrasted with the opulence of the place, but his presence radiated an authority that could not be ignored. He approached the Sterling family's table and stopped in front of Marcus. "I can't remain silent after what I just saw." Marcus looked up with disdain, measuring Patrick with an arrogant expression. "And who the hell are you to meddle in my business?" Patrick maintained a steady gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "I'm someone who doesn't tolerate violence against women." The entire restaurant held its breath. Ashley looked at Patrick in disbelief. Her eyes reflected a silent plea, but also fear. Marcus slowly stood up. His imposing height loomed over Patrick. "This doesn't concern you. Get out before I regret not calling security." Patrick didn't move. "You should be the one regretting it, Mr. Sterling." People like you think you can do whatever you want without consequences, but sooner or later the truth always comes out. Marcus let out a low laugh, but in his eyes there was something more than mockery. It was contained anger. You have no idea who you're messing with. Patrick tilted his head slightly with a half-smile. Maybe you don't either. Ashley felt the tension in the room was unbearable. Every second that passed was like a rope stretching to the breaking point. Eleanor got up with her elegance intact, but her eyes distilled venom. Enough of this scene. We're leaving. Marcus took a deep breath, his hands clenched at his sides. This conversation isn't over, he whispered in Ashley's ear before leaving. Patrick watched the family retreat, but deep down, he knew that this was only the beginning. When Ashley passed him, she felt a wave of relief at his presence. Thank you, she whispered, her voice broken. Patrick nodded, but his eyes reflected determination. I won't let him hurt you anymore. As the restaurant slowly returned to normal, Patrick stood there, feeling that fate had just placed him on the right path. He wasn't going to stop until he unmasked Marcus Sterling. Ashley, in the car with her husband, looked out the window, her mind full of unanswered questions. Something inside her told her that her life was about to change forever. The war had begun. The drive back home took place in an unsettling silence. Ashley kept her gaze fixed on the landscape, rushing past the car window. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of emotions she couldn't control. Marcus drove with a tense face. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, as if that way he could contain the fury boiling within him. Eleanor, sitting in the back seat, watched Ashley with an impenetrable expression. Her eyes evaluated every movement as if she were waiting for a sign of weakness, an opportunity to attack. I hope you understand the humiliation you caused tonight, Eleanor said softly, breaking the silence. What happened at the restaurant was unacceptable. Ashley clenched her hands in her lap, feeling the sting on her cheek still present. I wasn't the one who caused the humiliation, she replied in a trembling but firm voice. Marcus slammed his fist against the steering wheel, causing Ashley to involuntarily flinch. Don't talk to my mother like that, he roared. You're acting like an ingrate after everything I've given you. Ashley felt a lump in her throat, but said nothing more. She knew that any word would only make things worse. She closed her eyes for a moment, remembering Patrick's gaze, the only spark of humanity she had seen all night. Upon arriving at the mansion, Ashley got out of the car without waiting for help. She walked quickly into the house, feeling the atmosphere of the place closing in on her like an invisible fist. Marcus followed closely behind. His steps echoed behind her with a latent threat. Don't think this is over, Ashley. You've made our entire family look ridiculous. She stopped in the foyer, her eyes fixed on the staircase leading to her room. And what did you expect, Marcus? That I'd stay there smiling while you hit me in front of everyone. Marcus's laugh was dry, cruel. What you expected isn't my problem. What matters is what people believe, and now everyone will think you're a rebellious wife, unable to control herself. Eleanor appeared behind him, her arms crossed. We'll have to work to clean up this mess. Tomorrow we'll make a public statement. Ashley, you'll say it was all a misunderstanding, that you're tired, that social pressure is getting to you. Ashley felt a chill run down her body. I won't do that. Marcus approached, his face only inches from hers. You don't have a choice. Ashley swallowed and went up the stairs without another word. Inside her room, she locked the door and slumped against it. The crying came in silent waves, drowned out by fear and helplessness. Meanwhile, Patrick couldn't sleep. Sitting in the darkness of his small apartment, he looked at the folder of documents he had accumulated on Marcus Sterling over the years. He knew who he was, he knew his reputation, but now he had something more, a personal motivation. He turned on his computer and began searching for connections, any clue that could link Marcus to the disappearances of several women in the city. There was something in his gaze, in his absolute control over Ashley, that reminded him too much of another case he could never close: the disappearance of his younger sister. Patrick reviewed Marcus's company financial records, donations to charities, the names of women who had worked for him and vanished without a trace. This isn't a coincidence, he whispered to himself. He dialed a number on his phone. Carlos, I need you to get me information about the Sterling family, especially their connections with the police and government. The man on the other end of the line sighed. Are you playing with fire, Patty? Marcus Sterling is not someone you want as an enemy. Patrick rubbed his face, feeling the weight of the case on his shoulders. I already have him as an enemy, and I'm not going to stop. He hung up and leaned back in his armchair, feeling the night grow denser around him. Ashley woke up startled in the middle of the night, feeling a presence in her room. Her heart pounded in her chest as her eyes adjusted to the dim light. Who's there? The shadow by the window moved slowly until it revealed itself. It was Marcus. You shouldn't lock the door on me. His voice was a threatening whisper. This is my house, not yours. Ashley felt panic rise in her throat. I need space. Marcus smiled, leaning over her. There is no space in this marriage, Ashley. I am your world, and you'd do well to remember it. He leaned in to kiss her, but Ashley turned her face away, feeling his breath nearby. Leave me alone. Marcus grabbed her chin forcefully. Don't play games with me, dear. You know how things end when you don't follow my rules. He got up calmly, left the room, and closed the door behind him, leaving her trembling in the darkness. That night, Ashley knew she had to find a way out before it was too late. The next morning, Ashley sat in front of the mirror, observing the faint mark Marcus's slap had left on her skin. She took a deep breath and decided she wouldn't let her life continue like this. She took out her phone and wrote a message to an unknown number she had found the night before on a card slid under her door. I need to talk to you. Ashley. Soon after, she received a response. Meet me at Central Park in an hour. Ashley felt her hands tremble as she dressed in discreet clothes. She left the house under the pretense of going to the florist. Eleanor looked at her with suspicion but said nothing. In the park, she found Patrick waiting for her by a bench. His gaze was serious, but there was something in his eyes that comforted her. Thank you for coming, Ashley said, sitting beside him. Patrick watched her closely. You don't have to thank me for anything. You need help. Ashley looked around nervously. Marcus is dangerous. You don't know what he's capable of. Patrick nodded slowly. Yes, I do, Ashley. I've been investigating men like him for a long time, and believe me, they all have a weak spot. Ashley felt a spark of hope. What can I do? Patrick slid an envelope towards her. Start with this. Here is information about some people who worked for your husband. Some disappeared without a trace. If there's anything you can recall, any detail will help me catch him. Ashley took the envelope with trembling hands. I don't know if I can do this alone. Patrick smiled slightly. You're not alone. Ashley felt that for the first time in a long time, she had a chance to fight for her life. Upon returning home, she hid the envelope in her purse and faced Eleanor's inquisitive gaze. Where have you been? Ashley stared at her. The florist. Eleanor assessed her for a moment before smiling. I hope you remember who you belong to, dear. Ashley went up to her room and locked the door. With trembling hands, she opened the envelope and began reading the documents that could change her destiny. In her heart, she knew the battle was just beginning. Ashley closed her bedroom door with a tremor in her hands that she couldn't control. The folder of documents Patrick had given her weighed more than the paper it contained. It was as if each page housed a fragment of the truth that had been buried for years. She sat on the edge of the bed, taking a deep breath before opening it. Her eyes scanned the names of women who had at some point been in Marcus's orbit. Housemaids, personal assistants, models from exclusive events. They all shared something in common. They disappeared without a trace. Her hands lingered on a crumpled photograph of one of them, a woman with a sad gaze and a cautious smile. Ashley felt a chill run through her body. She knew that face. She had seen her in the mansion years ago, serving tea at one of Eleanor's gatherings. The bedroom door burst open, and Ashley slammed the folder shut, hiding it under the bed in a reflex action. Marcus was in the doorway, his arms crossed and his gaze penetrating. You look nervous. His voice was low, controlled, but with that edge of latent threat. Something you want to tell me? Ashley forced a smile, feeling her heart race in her chest. No, I'm just tired. Marcus advanced slowly toward her, letting his shadow cover her. Ashley kept her gaze down, feeling his presence like an unbearable weight. Don't make me doubt you, Ashley. You know what happens when you fail me. She nodded, her throat too dry to respond. Marcus watched her for a few more seconds before turning and leaving the room, closing the door with a click that resonated in her mind as a reminder of her golden cage. That night, Ashley could barely sleep. Marcus's words echoed in her head, mingling with the images of the missing women. When sleep finally overcame her, it was restless and plagued by nightmares. The next morning, the mansion seemed colder than usual. Eleanor, impeccably dressed, supervised the staff as Ashley descended the stairs with a distant expression. Her mother-in-law's gaze followed her closely, as if she could read her most hidden thoughts. You don't look well, Eleanor said without looking up from the newspaper she held. I hope you're not thinking of making any hasty decisions. Ashley paused for a moment, feeling the warning behind those words. She knew Eleanor had eyes and ears in every corner of the house. "I'm fine," she replied softly, trying to sound convincing. Eleanor placed the newspaper on the table with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm glad to hear it. You know how much we worry about you." Ashley shivered, knowing that we worry didn't mean affection but control. During breakfast, Marcus seemed oblivious to the tension that enveloped the table. He talked about his upcoming meeting with investors, the family's image, and how certain scandals could ruin years of effort. Ashley limited herself to nodding at the right moments, feigning interest while her mind was elsewhere. As soon as she could, she went out into the garden, seeking a respite away from Eleanor's constant gaze. She took out her phone with trembling hands and wrote a message to Patrick. "I found something. I need to talk to you." The message was sent, and Ashley felt she was walking on a tightrope that could snap at any moment. That afternoon, Ashley managed to leave the mansion under the pretense of visiting her childhood friend. When she arrived at the meeting point, Patrick was waiting for her on a secluded park bench with a frown and an alert expression. "What did you find?" he asked as soon as she sat beside him. Ashley took out the photograph she had kept from the folder and showed it to him. I know her. She worked at the mansion years ago. One day she just disappeared, and Marcus said she had resigned, but it never seemed convincing to me." Patrick looked at the photo carefully. "Her name was Juliana Rivers. She disappeared 4 years ago without a trace. Her family never got answers." Ashley felt a lump in her throat. "Marcus has to be involved, but I don't know how to prove it." Patrick carefully put away the photo and looked at her with determination. "We'll take care of that, but you have to be very careful. Marcus is a dangerous man, and if he suspects anything..." Ashley looked away, feeling the weight of the warning. "I know." Patrick offered her a look of support. "You have more strength than you think, Ashley. You're not alone." For the first time in a long time, Ashley felt she had a chance. Upon returning to the mansion, Ashley ran into Marcus in the foyer. He looked at her suspiciously, his eyes scrutinizing her from head to toe. "You're taking a long time on those outings lately." Ashley forced a smile. "I just went to see Laura. I lost track of time." Marcus took her by the waist forcefully, his lips close to her ear. "And I don't like it when you lose track of time, dear. Make sure it doesn't happen again." Ashley felt the threat in his words and gently pulled away, climbing the stairs with her heart pounding. Once in her room, she took out the folder again and began taking notes. Each page was a story without an end, a life cut short by someone who believed he had the right to control everything. Ashley could no longer be a mere spectator. That night, Eleanor entered without knocking, as was her custom. "We need to talk." Ashley left the folder under the sheets and looked at her calmly. "Tell me." Eleanor closed the door behind her and stared intently. "I know you've been meeting with someone." "I'm not stupid, Ashley." Ashley felt her heart stop for a moment, but she kept her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." Eleanor smiled coldly. "Marcus is not a man you want to defy. And I warn you, dear, if you continue down this path, you'll end up like the others." Ashley felt a chill run through her body. "The others?" Eleanor stared at her without answering. "Don't play with fire, Ashley. Sometimes the price of truth is too high." Before Ashley could say anything else, Eleanor left the room, leaving her with more questions than answers. The suspicion was growing. Not just in Ashley, but in Eleanor. Something was about to break in the mansion, and when it did, no one would be safe. That night, Ashley could barely close her eyes. She felt that every shadow in the house concealed a secret, that every whispered word was a disguised warning, but in her heart, she knew there was no turning back. The mansion felt colder than ever. Ashley spent her days immersed in a tense wait, aware that her every move was being watched. Eleanor no longer bothered to hide her distrust, while Marcus seemed more attentive than ever to every word, every gesture, every furtive glance she directed around her. That morning, while having breakfast at the huge mahogany table, Ashley felt her mother-in-law's piercing gaze from the other end. "You've been quieter than usual, dear," Eleanor said with false sweetness. "Anything we should know?" Ashley slowly looked up, trying to maintain her composure. "I have nothing to hide." Eleanor smiled, but her eyes shone with an unsettling intensity. "I hope so. I wouldn't want Marcus to have to correct certain behaviors." Ashley clenched the cup in her hands, feeling the heat as an anchor that kept her firm in place. Marcus, sitting next to her, took her hand too tightly, locking his eyes onto hers. "You know all I want is for you to be well, right?" The softness of his voice contrasted with the latent threat behind his words. Ashley nodded slowly, forcing a smile that she knew wouldn't convince anyone. Of course. The conversation was suspended in an uncomfortable silence as the sound of cutlery clinking against plates filled the space. Ashley knew Eleanor wouldn't stop suspecting, and that Marcus wouldn't forgive betrayal. As soon as she could, she went out to the library, looking for a respite away from Eleanor's constant gaze. She took out her phone with trembling hands and wrote a message to Patrick. "I found something. I need to talk to you." The message was sent, and Ashley felt she was walking on a tightrope that could snap at any moment. That afternoon, Ashley managed to leave the mansion under the pretense of visiting her childhood friend. When she arrived at the meeting point, Patrick was waiting for her on a secluded park bench with a frown and an alert expression. "What did you find?" he asked as soon as she sat beside him. Ashley took out the photograph she had kept from the folder and showed it to him. I know her. She worked at the mansion years ago. One day she just disappeared, and Marcus said she had resigned, but it never seemed convincing to me." Patrick looked at the photo carefully. "Her name was Marina Echevarria. She disappeared 4 years ago without a trace. Her family never got answers." Ashley felt a lump in her throat. "Marcus has to be involved, but I don't know how to prove it." Patrick carefully put away the photo and looked at her with determination. "We'll take care of that, but you have to be very careful. Marcus is a dangerous man, and if he suspects anything..." Ashley looked away, feeling the weight of the warning. "I know." Patrick offered her a look of support. "You have more strength than you think, Ashley. You're not alone." For the first time in a long time, Ashley felt she had a chance. Upon returning to the mansion, Ashley ran into Marcus in the foyer. He looked at her suspiciously, his eyes scrutinizing her from head to toe. "You're taking a long time on those outings lately." Ashley forced a smile. "I just went to see Laura. I lost track of time." Marcus took her by the waist forcefully, his lips close to her ear. "And I don't like it when you lose track of time, dear. Make sure it doesn't happen again." Ashley felt the threat in his words and gently pulled away, climbing the stairs with her heart pounding. Once in her room, she took out the folder again and began taking notes. Each page was a story without an end, a life cut short by someone who believed he had the right to control everything. Ashley could no longer be a mere spectator. That night, Eleanor entered without knocking, as was her custom. "We need to talk." Ashley left the folder under the sheets and looked at her calmly. "Tell me." Eleanor closed the door behind her and stared intently. "I know you've been meeting with someone." "I'm not stupid, Ashley." Ashley felt her heart stop for a moment, but she kept her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." Eleanor smiled coldly. "Marcus is not a man you want to defy. And I warn you, dear, if you continue down this path, you'll end up like the others." Ashley felt a chill run through her body. "The others?" Eleanor stared at her without answering. "Don't play with fire, Ashley. Sometimes the price of truth is too high." Before Ashley could say anything else, Eleanor left the room, leaving her with more questions than answers. The suspicion was growing. Not just in Ashley, but in Eleanor. Something was about to break in the mansion, and when it did, no one would be safe. The mansion felt colder than ever. Ashley spent her days immersed in a tense wait, aware that her every move was being watched. Eleanor no longer bothered to hide her distrust, while Marcus seemed more attentive than ever to every word, every gesture, every furtive glance she directed around her. That morning, while having breakfast at the huge mahogany table, Ashley felt her mother-in-law's piercing gaze from the other end. "You've been quieter than usual, dear," Eleanor said with false sweetness. "Anything we should know?" Ashley slowly looked up, trying to maintain her composure. "I have nothing to hide." Eleanor smiled, but her eyes shone with an unsettling intensity. "I hope so. I wouldn't want Marcus to have to correct certain behaviors." Ashley clenched the cup in her hands, feeling the heat as an anchor that kept her firm in place. Marcus, sitting next to her, took her hand too tightly, locking his eyes onto hers. "You know all I want is for you to be well, right?" The softness of his voice contrasted with the latent threat behind his words. Ashley nodded slowly, forcing a smile that she knew wouldn't convince anyone. "Of course." The conversation was suspended in an uncomfortable silence as the sound of cutlery clinking against plates filled the space. Ashley knew Eleanor wouldn't stop suspecting, and that Marcus wouldn't forgive betrayal. That same night, Ashley waited until she was sure Marcus was asleep. She slipped out of bed stealthily and took the document folder from its hiding place under the mattress. She sat in the armchair by the window, illuminated only by the moonlight filtering through the curtains. She turned page after page, trying to find something she could use, something that would give her the advantage she so desperately needed. Suddenly, she found a name that seemed familiar: Marina Echevarria. Ashley vaguely remembered Marina, a young woman who worked for Marcus's company for a few months before disappearing without warning. Marcus had said she had moved abroad for personal reasons, but Ashley never fully believed him. She took her phone and dialed Patrick's number with trembling hands. "I need you to find information about Marina Echevarria," she whispered, feeling that every word was a risk. It took Patrick a few seconds to reply. "I'll see what I can find. Be careful, Ashley. Marcus is nervous, I can tell." Ashley hung up, feeling something in her chest tighten even more. The next day, Ashley received a message from Patrick with an address. It was a small motel on the outskirts of the city. With her heart in her throat, she fabricated an excuse to leave the mansion and headed to the location. Upon arrival, she saw a woman sitting at one of the lobby tables. Her eyes were tired, but Ashley recognized her immediately. Marina Echevarria. Ashley approached slowly, feeling that every step was a mixture of fear and hope. "Marina, I'm Ashley Sterling." The woman looked up, and her expression changed from panic to confusion. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, looking around suspiciously. Ashley sat opposite her, feeling the air grow thick. "I need to know what happened to you. Why did you disappear?" Marina swallowed and leaned forward. "Marcus forced me to leave. I discovered things I shouldn't have. Documents, names, women. When I tried to confront him, he threatened me." Ashley felt a chill run through her body. "And what did you do?" Marina looked at her trembling hands. "I had no choice but to leave, but he never left me alone. I always felt like someone was watching me." Ashley pressed her lips together, feeling determination grow within her. "I'm not going to let him keep getting away with it." Marina looked at her with a mixture of admiration and pity. "Be very careful. Marcus is more dangerous than you imagine." Ashley nodded, knowing she had already crossed a line from which there was no turning back. Back at the mansion, Ashley tried to act normally, but the conversation with Marina pursued her like a shadow. Marcus observed her with increasing attention, and Eleanor seemed more vigilant than ever. That night, while Ashley was in the library reviewing some papers, she heard footsteps approaching. Before she could react, the door slammed shut. Eleanor was standing in the doorway with an expression of calculated severity. "Don't think I don't know what you're doing, Ashley." Ashley felt the air grow heavier. "I don't know what you're talking about." Eleanor advanced slowly, her gaze fixed on hers. "You went to see Marina Echevarria. Do you think Marcus doesn't have eyes everywhere?" Ashley clenched her fists, trying to maintain her composure. "If he already knows, why hasn't he said anything to me?" Eleanor smiled with a coldness that chilled her blood. "Because he's waiting for the perfect moment, and when it comes, you'll have no escape." Ashley swallowed, feeling that every second with Eleanor was a struggle to stay firm. "I won't stand by, Eleanor. Not anymore." Eleanor stared at her for an instant before turning around and leaving the room, leaving her with more questions than answers. The suspicion was growing. Not just in Ashley, but in Eleanor. Something was about to break in the mansion, and when it did, no one would be safe. That night, Ashley could barely close her eyes. She felt that every shadow in the house concealed a secret, that every whispered word was a disguised warning, but in her heart, she knew there was no turning back. That same night, Ashley met Patrick in a dark alley, far from the mansion's surveillance. "Eleanor knows everything," Ashley said, her voice barely a whisper. "Marcus is waiting to trap me." Patrick nodded, his face tense. "We have to get ahead of him. I have enough evidence for the police to investigate him, but we need something strong, something that will completely bury him." Ashley took a breath, feeling the adrenaline rush through her body. "There's a study in his private office. He always keeps that room locked. Maybe there's something there." Patrick looked at her cautiously. "That's very risky." Ashley looked at him with determination. "It's the only way." Patrick nodded slowly. "Then we'll do it." The next morning, while Marcus was in a meeting, Ashley entered his private office. Her hands trembled as she forced the lock with the key she had taken from his jacket. Inside, the room was dark with a huge bookcase and a safe in the corner. She searched the drawers, finding papers with suspicious figures and names she recognized from Patrick's folder. When she found a hidden USB in a compartment, she felt her heart pound. She knew she had to leave before Marcus returned. Just as she was about to leave, Marcus's voice echoed behind her. Looking for something, dear? Ashley froze, feeling the blood drain from her face. Marcus closed the door with a smile that chilled her soul. I think it's time we had a little chat. Ashley knew the moment had come to confront him, or lose everything. Ashley felt time stop when she heard Marcus's voice behind her. Her breathing became erratic, and the cold of the private office seemed to engulf her completely. The USB hidden in her hand felt like an overwhelming weight. She tried to stay calm, but cold sweat began to run down her back. Looking for something, dear? Marcus asked with an unnerving calm as he closed the door behind him, blocking her exit. Ashley turned slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. Her eyes met Marcus's, dark and full of suspicion. The familiar calculating smile spread across his face, but Ashley was no longer the fragile woman who trembled in his presence. There was something different in her gaze. I must have gotten the wrong room, she tried to say, struggling to sound convincing. Marcus took another step toward her, watching her like a predator. His presence was overwhelming, and Ashley knew she had no escape. He knew. She saw it in his expression. I don't believe you, he whispered, his voice barely a murmur loaded with threat. Not after everything you've been doing lately. Ashley swallowed, feeling that every second was becoming a rope that was tightening more and more. Marcus slowly extended his hand. Give me what you have in your hand. Ashley felt her body paralyzed by the threat. She squeezed the USB tighter, knowing that if she handed it over, her only chance to escape this hell would vanish. She looked for something, anything in the room that could help her. Her eyes scanned the room until they found a heavy clipboard on the desk. I don't have anything, Marcus, she whispered. Before he could react, Ashley lifted the clipboard with all her strength and slammed it against his face. Marcus groaned in pain, bringing his hands to his face, and Ashley took the moment to run for the door. Her hands trembled as she desperately turned the knob. Marcus quickly recovered, and his voice roared behind her. You won't escape me, Ashley. Ashley managed to get out and run down the mansion hallway, her heart beating frantically. Her only option was to reach the exit before he caught her. Her feet barely touched the ground as she ran down the stairs. The house staff watched her in surprise, but no one dared to intervene. Eleanor appeared in the foyer, her eyes fixed on Ashley with a mixture of anger and disappointment. I knew you would betray this family, she said coldly. Ashley didn't stop. She ran toward the main door and slammed it open, feeling the fresh air hit her face. In the doorway, Patrick was waiting, his car engine running and his gaze alert. Get in, he shouted. Ashley ran to the car and got into the passenger seat, just as Marcus appeared at the door, his face distorted with rage. He slammed his fist on the car hood as Patrick accelerated, leaving behind the mansion that had been her prison for years. Inside the car, Ashley could barely breathe. She held the USB in her trembling hand. She looked at Patrick, her eyes filled with tears. I have it, Patrick. Patrick nodded, his gaze fixed on the road. You're safe now. Let's see what's on it. Ashley exhaled tremulously and closed her eyes for a moment, trying to assimilate what she had just done. She had confronted Marcus. She had escaped, but she knew this wasn't over. They arrived at a discreet apartment on the outskirts of the city. Patrick locked the door behind them and went to the table where he connected the USB to his computer. Ashley hugged herself as she watched the folders begin to open on the screen. Files of suspicious transactions, names of missing women, emails with veiled threats. Each click revealed another layer of Marcus's corruption network. This is enough to sink him, Patrick whispered. But we have to be careful. If he knows we have this, he'll do anything to silence us. Ashley took a deep breath, feeling determination grow within her. I'm not going to hide anymore. It's time everyone knows who Marcus Sterling is. Patrick looked at her with respect. We're going to need allies. The press, the police. Ashley shook her head. I don't trust anyone. Too many are in his pocket. Patrick nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. Then we'll make it public another way. Ashley took a breath and looked at the screen. She knew that exposing the truth put her life at risk, but she couldn't keep running. Let's do it. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Marcus threw a crystal glass against the wall, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. Eleanor remained seated on the sofa with her hands crossed and an impassive expression. You let her slip away again, Eleanor said in a cold voice. I always thought you had everything under control. Marcus breathed heavily, his hands trembling with contained rage. I won't let her get away with it. No one challenges me like this. Eleanor interrupted him with a wave of her hand. We've wasted enough time. It's time to end this once and for all. Marcus looked at her with suspicion. What do you have in mind? Eleanor placed her glass on the table and leaned forward. Let her get confident. She'll think she's safe, and when she least expects it, she'll fall. Marcus smiled coldly. I like the way you think, Mother. Eleanor smiled slightly, but in her eyes there was something more, a shadow of guilt that no one could notice. Back at the cabin, Ashley was looking out the window, feeling danger lurking in every shadow. Patrick entered with 2 cups of coffee and offered her one. You didn't sleep at all, did you? Ashley shook her head. I can't. I know Marcus won't stop until he finds us. Patrick sighed and sat beside her. That's why we have to get ahead of him. Diana will publish the story tonight. Tomorrow the whole country will know the truth. Ashley looked at her reflection in the window, seeing a woman she no longer recognized. I hope it's enough. Laura appeared from the kitchen with a worried expression. Someone's outside. Patrick immediately stood up, taking his weapon. Ashley felt her stomach clench as the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. The tension in the room was unbearable. Patrick slowly opened the door and found a man standing in the rain. It was Carlos, soaked, his face full of worry. They followed us. We have to get out of here. Ashley knew at that moment that the fight was not over. Carlos stood in the doorway of the cabin, his breathing ragged and water dripping from his hair. Ashley felt a chill run down her skin. She had expected this moment, but not so soon. Who? Patrick asked, his jaw tight, already preparing his weapon. Carlos looked around cautiously, as if every shadow hid an enemy. Marcus's men. They've been following us since the city. They have cars on the main road. We don't have much time. Ashley felt her heart accelerate. The feeling of safety she had felt in the cabin completely disappeared. She looked at Laura, who was pale and trembling. Her face reflected a terror Ashley knew too well. We have to go, Ashley said in a firm voice, taking Laura's hand to offer some comfort. We can't stay here. Patrick nodded, looking around. We can go out the back through the woods. There's an old path that will take us to the river. From there, we can get away without being seen. Carlos shook his head. It won't be that easy. They have drones flying over the area. They're covering every possible exit. Ashley felt a pang of despair, but she buried it. She couldn't afford to lose control now. Then, we have to give them something else to look for, she said with determination. I'll go out the front and draw their attention. Patrick looked at her in disbelief. Are you serious? Marcus wants to catch you. We can't take that risk. Ashley held his gaze with a strength she hadn't shown before. I'm the only one who can do it. You and Carlos get Laura out of here. I'll meet you later. Carlos looked at Patrick, seeking some sign of disagreement, but Patrick knew Ashley was right. Marcus would never stop as long as she was escaping. All right, he said with a sigh, though his voice made it clear he didn't like the plan. But you won't be alone. Ashley nodded. She knew this was the time to confront Marcus, to end everything once and for all. The plan was immediately put into action. Ashley went out the front door with a long coat covering her face and her hands tucked into her pockets. She knew Marcus's men would be waiting, but she feigned calm as she walked toward the road. Car lights immediately turned on, illuminating the night with blinding flashes. Ashley squinted and maintained her steady pace. She couldn't hesitate. A tall, intimidating man got out of one of the black cars. He wore a leather jacket and the expression of someone accustomed to violence. Mrs. Sterling, he said in a deep voice. Your husband is waiting for you. Ashley clenched her fists inside her pockets. I have nothing to discuss with him. The man smiled, a twisted smile that sent a chill down her spine. I don't think you have a choice. Before she could react, she felt a strong pressure on her arm. 2 more men got out of the car and surrounded her. She knew she had no chance of escaping at that moment, but the time she gained meant Patrick and Laura were already far away. Take me to him, she said in a firm voice, feeling her destiny was already sealed. Marcus was waiting in the family's old country house, a secluded, almost abandoned place, but still imposing. When Ashley entered, escorted by her husband's men, she felt a sense of déjà vu. It was the same place Marcus had taken her when she tried to leave him for the first time years ago. Marcus stood by the fireplace, his hands in the pockets of his impeccable suit. His face reflected a mixture of fury and satisfaction. I never thought you'd be so stupid, Ashley. She stood tall despite the fear that invaded her inside. Is that what you believe? That I was stupid for stopping being your prisoner? Marcus took a step toward her. His presence was imposing, but Ashley did not back down. You thought you could win, he whispered. You thought you could escape from me, but what you don't understand is that I'm always one step ahead. Ashley smiled slightly despite the terror she felt. That's your biggest weakness, Marcus. Underestimating others. Marcus's eyes flashed with fury. He stepped closer, gripping her face forcefully. I could make you disappear right now. No one would know what happened to you. Ashley felt Marcus's breath, but she maintained her composure. Maybe, but I'm not alone anymore. Marcus let go of her abruptly, taking a few steps back. Do you think Patrick can protect you forever? That petty cop has a chance against me? Ashley stared at him. It's not about Patrick, it's about the truth. At that moment, a phone rang in the pocket of one of Marcus's men. He answered quickly, listening intently before turning to his boss. Sir, you better see this. Marcus took the phone with an expression of irritation and looked at the screen. Ashley could see the change in his face. Diana Roman, the journalist, had aired the story. The documents, the testimonies, the evidence of corruption, everything was being broadcast live on national television. Ashley felt a small victory in her heart as she saw the fury in Marcus's eyes. What did you do? He growled, clutching the phone in rage. Ashley smiled with a calmness that enraged him even more. I won. Marcus's men began to move nervously, knowing that the weight of the law could fall on them at any moment. Marcus looked at her with a mixture of hatred and despair. This isn't over, Ashley. You'll always find my shadow behind you. Ashley took a deep breath, feeling that she was finally free. Maybe, but now I'm not afraid anymore. At that moment, sirens began to sound in the distance. Patrick had kept his promise. The police, the real police, were arriving. Marcus tried to flee, but officers quickly surrounded him. Ashley watched as they handcuffed him and felt that for the first time in years, she could breathe. Weeks later, Ashley was at a small cafe with Laura and Patrick. The sun shone softly through the windows, as if the storm had finally passed. Laura smiled, her face more relaxed than Ashley had ever seen it. I still can't believe I'm free, she said softly. Patrick gently took Ashley's hand. We did it. Ashley nodded, feeling a peace she had never known before. We did it. Outside, the world continued its course, but for Ashley, life had finally begun anew. If you enjoyed this story, I invite you to leave a comment about what you felt while reading it. And if you have gone through a similar situation of deceit, I would love for you to share your valuable opinion. I would be very honored if you leave a like, share the video with a friend or family member, and subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the next surprising story appearing on your screen right now. We have guaranteed entertainment exclusively for you.